Well, it is hard to know where to start. I'm not sure how people are going to feel about that to be continued at the end. And people have to make their own judgments about how the candidates handled themselves tonight, who made the better case, who offered plans for the future, who told the truth, and who deserves to be president. Those are all judgments that are going to be made over the next several days and weeks. But I have to speak personally here as somebody who's watched presidential debates for 40 years, as somebody who's moderated presidential debates.
Yes, of course I'll be covering the VP debate.
For presidential debates. As someone who's covered presidential debates, that was the worst presidential debate I have ever seen in my life. A lot more heat than light over some 98 minutes. I want to go to the room right now. John Carl, you were there in the room. You cover the president. Your thoughts?
George, the debate was a total mess. It was a mess of interruptions, petty insults. I was in touch with some people on the floor who told me they were stunned by what they were seeing transpire on that stage. Donald Trump came across like a bully. There was an avalanche of untruth statements that came out. Joe Biden did not have a particularly steady performance. I could say, really honestly, it looked as if both men lost this debate. And in that sense, the real loser is Donald Trump. Because as we said at the start, Donald Trump was the one that needed to change the dynamic of this race. He is the one that is losing. He is the one that needed to change the trajectory. He is the one that needed a big win. And that did not happen tonight.
Mary Bruce?
Well, Joe Biden's campaign is feeling very good right now. They came into tonight with a goal not to get dragged into the mud with Donald Trump, but to instead speak directly to the American people about what they feel are the issues that matter most. And the campaign aide tells me that every single time that Joe Biden essentially went around the president and stared straight down the barrel of the camera and talked to the American public, spoke to voters directly about a vaccine, about the economy, COVID, about election integrity, they say every single one of those moments they were winning. George, this was just remarkable. I mean, when you take a step back and you think about the fact that in a normal debate, if you were to call your opponent a clown, racist, the worst president ever, to tell him to shut up or to shush, normally that would be considered crossing a line. But here tonight, that was part of a concerted strategy by Joe Biden to try and show that he could keep his cool, actually. It's part of an effort by Joe Biden to show that he can be the adult in the room, that he can be the leader who can guide this country out of these really turbulent times. And so over and over.
I think liberals like to tell themselves stories, and this is one of them, okay? I think this is a story that we're telling. I think they backpacked Biden pretty hard in the past news cycle, and that's good overall because I want him to win, right? But I think it's a story that we're telling ourselves and one another when we say, like, Joe Biden is he's demonstrating that he's the adult in the room. Like, yeah, the only thing he demonstrated to me is that, like, he might not be at he pees in the bed or on the hallway stage of his geriatric life cycle, but maybe he can still get up in the middle of the night to pee and aim directly into the toilet. Like, that's the only thing he demonstrated. He didn't demonstrate that he's a fucking adult. He got rattled as fuck, dude. If you can't put up with that goddamn bully on the debate stage, how the fuck are you going to lead a country when you're under pressure constantly? Like, if we were being honest about it, that would be the serious conversation to be having. But we can't have that serious conversation, and we don't even need to have that serious conversation because ultimately it doesn't matter. Because as the chief White House correspondent earlier pointed out, and as I pointed out last night, and Austin did, and Ryan Grimm did as well, Trump had to fucking swing out of the gates, knock us out of the park, and Joe Biden needed to literally have a fucking stroke on camera. Neither of those things happened. Trump looked like a bully. Joe Biden looked all right and competent to a certain degree, even though he did look pretty battered. So that's a dub. Put that on the board.
Again, he simply refused to give credence to the president's attacks, even though, let's be honest, there were parts of that debate that were simply unwatchable because the two of them were just talking over and over each other. I mean, here in the room, it was really astounding. And it was apparent as you watched that the president was often turned to the former vice president, pointing his finger at him, speaking directly to him. Joe Biden instead staring straight down that camera, trying to speak to the American people, making his point. The Biden campaign says all you saw tonight from the president was chaos. What you saw from Joe Biden was stability, they say.
Thank you, Mary Bruce. Chris Christie, you helped prepare the president for this debate. Was that the debate you prepared for?
No. But what I'll tell you is that I listened to some of the commentary already, and I think there's people missing some things. First off, Rom said earlier that it was the that it was the vice president's job tonight to reassure. I don't think that's a reassuring performance by the vice president tonight. He looked very shaky at many, many times during this debate. His numbers were way off. He would wander off in mid-sentence and then used lots of name-calling and insulting language. That's not rising above it. I have to disagree with Mary, or at least what she's conveying from the Biden folks. And yeah, I think on the Trump side, it was too hot. I mean,
What? Wait, Biden was name calling? What? Because he said clown? Chris Christie is normally pretty good. But, dude, this is. I mean, what did he do? Substitute McDonald's for copium? What the fuck? He's just mainlining the highest dosage, black tar copium. If you are going to turn around and your first take, as a matter of fact, the most important take that you have from that debate is that Biden was engaging in name calling. What the? What? Bro, that's insane, dude. That's completely insane. I mean, Donald Trump literally said, while Joe Biden was trying to have an emotional moment about, like, recalling his son who fucking died and his, service, Donald Trump turned around and was like, your son's addicted to crack. You got a crack addict. You got a crack addict for your son. Where's Hunter? Like, what the fuck? Are you crazy? Hassan, the troop defender? I mean, I am not a fucking troop defender, but holy shit, like, it's fucking nuts that, like, just because he correctly called Trump a clown, dude, he should have done so much worse. I'm mad at Joe Biden for not being aggressive enough.
you know, listen, you come in and decide you want to be aggressive, and I think that was the right thing to be aggressive, but that was too hot. And so I think that what happens is, with all that heat, as you said before, you lose the light. That potentially can be fixed. Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see on the Trump side. On the Biden side, I'd be very concerned that his problems can't be fixed. Because if you're not up to being able to stand up there for 90 minutes and be consistently coherent, people are going to wonder whether you're going to be able to do that when you're sitting behind the desk in the Oval Office. So I think that's the issue that got raised tonight.
Emmanuel.
I think Joe Biden did a smart.
Yeah, Rogan, you are absolutely correct. That was a beautiful moment too, by the way. I didn't even hear it at the debate because, I don't know, I feel like it was just such chaos that, like, it was hard to parse through. But I listened to it again earlier this morning. One of the things that Joe Biden actually said, instead of, like, getting frazzled, instead of, like, punching back at Donald Trump or anything, when talking about Hunter Biden, was he pulled back, he took a deep breath, and he said, my son had addiction issues, which he overcame, much like many of these Americans. My son had an addiction problem, like so many Americans, and he overcame that, and I'm proud of him. And that was a fucking brilliant moment. That was. I didn't hear it. I'm glad that the media is at least elevating that, because that was a massive dub for Biden. He brings it back to serious policy problems, a serious issue that so many Americans experience in their own families or in their own communities as far as addiction goes, and then taking it back to like a personal point for him. What a great retaliation to a horrible moment where Donald Trump was just being truly a loud bully. Do I think Hunter Biden overcame his cocaine addiction? I don't know. I don't know. I don't care. It's a good line by Biden. I love Hunter Biden. I think Hunter Biden is probably one of the most cherished, prized possessions that we should protect. He's a national treasure. You guys know this. Huge Hunter fan. Infinitely better than the fail sons on the Trump side. Oh my God. Yeah. But that was really good. That was really good by Biden.
Strategy of a rope-a-dope, because in fact the president looked totally out of control, and Chris Wallace basically said that. And the president needed to change people's perception. He looked exactly like the bully that people have had exhausted by for 3.5 years. I think the vice president steadied as the night went on. When he talked about COVID, when he talked about health care, when he talked about, and he looked right at the American people and said, this is about your family and your direction. When he also talked about the integrity of bringing people together. And also when he rebutted him about his son, Bo, in service and not calling him a patsy for serving. I thought those were his best moments. There are moments he did who wouldn't get rattled when you're having somebody just scream at you all night. And the fact that Chris Wallace basically said it, like, hold on here, and there are rules here. And so I think the president hurt himself by only having a fifth gear. There was no second gear, there was no third gear. And I think, given that, I think the vice president practiced a pretty good rope-a-dope
I
strategy.
just want to say, in a just world, like, I hate Chris Christie, but I'll even go so far as to say I like Chris Christie more than I like Rahm Emanuel. In a just world, Rahm Emanuel wouldn't be sitting on a fucking panel on ABC. He would be in jail. No, he would be under the jail. Okay? Rahm Emanuel is a devastating force within the Democratic establishment for all the years that he served under the Obama administration. He is horrific. He is almost directly responsible for that blue city narrative. Okay? As a Democrat, he is literally the guy that you can use as an example of, like, vote blue no matter who completely fucking failing. Okay? Why the fuck should black people vote blue no matter who when voting blue gets you Rahm motherfucking Emanuel? Like, the Democrat-run cities have problems. Literally. That guy is responsible for that narrative. Like, almost, not single-handedly, but, like, plays a gigantic role in that narrative sticking. Okay? So the fact that he is some guy that still carries weight around in the Democratic Party, and the fact that he even has analysis, despite the fact that he was absolutely correct with what he just said about Joe Biden staring at the camera and talking to the American people, addressing the American people, all that stuff was correct. He should not have this position. He should not be writing books. He should not be getting op-ed pieces on the New York Times and numerous other legacy publishers. He should not be anywhere near politics. But we do not live in a just world. We live in a cruel and unjust world where Rahm Emanuel is still celebrated.
Strategy.
David Muir, we're going to have to do it on GMA tomorrow. You're going to have to do it on World News Tonight tomorrow night. What is the lead of this debate?
Well, you know, as we were going into this tonight, George, one of the things that you and I were talking about is the level of
Rahm Emanuel, much like Bloomberg, who was a Republican, of course, and is a Republican, and Giuliani before him, did exactly what McFoucault is talking about here. Taking money, responsible for the violence and poverty in Chicago, pushing programs that directly took money from poor people and funneled it to developers and gentrifiers. There are massive problems with income inequality in this country, specifically in urban areas where a lot of people of color congregate. And when you put people like Rahm Emanuel at the helm to deal with problems like that, the way that they deal with problems like that is by pushing it away as best as possible while trying to actively gentrify certain neighborhoods and increasing police budgets and increase and overlooking the brutality. As a matter of fact, in some instances, even agitating for that brutality to occur to black people, over policing black communities instead of offering social programs and social safety nets to black communities that will allow them to uplift themselves. Okay? He is horrible. Horrible. And the only reason why he's not mayor anymore is literally because he covered up a black person's death by the Chicago Police Department. So just he's a racist douchebag. Everyone in Chicago politics is pretty fucking corrupt regardless, but Rahm Emanuel is uniquely awful. His brother also happens to own the agency that I'm represented by. Full disclosure, but I truly despise Rahm Emanuel. So sorry, Ari Emanuel, but your brother sucks dick. Okay.
of exhaustion in this country. We have to remember that the backdrop for this entire debate is this coronavirus pandemic. 200,000 American lives have been lost. The economy, millions on unemployment, and people are exhausted. They want to know when is...
I don't think they'll fire me. I'm finally fucking making money for them for the first time through Twitch. So I I don't believe they'll be firing me anytime soon. Like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, if I said some shit like this and they heard about it, they'd be like, "Yeah, fuck you, Hasan, you're done." But now I don't. Now I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna fire me anytime soon. When I would go so far as to say, you know, in one of the areas that they're looking into, in a decent, in one of the trailblazers, I guess, in one of the areas that they're looking into, specifically live streaming. How can you be fired from Twitch streaming? I wouldn't be fired, but my agency could drop me because I said Ari Emanuel's brother sucks ass. Anyway, finally running ads. Why would they fire you? Well, that's why you gotta fucking suck that corporate dick every now and then to make yourself a irreplaceable figure. So they look the other way when you say stuff like that. Can we focus on the real issues? Talk about the candidates' outfits, please.
Is this going to end?
No.
Who has a plan to help guide the way through? And you have to wonder if tonight did anything to further that argument or put people at home, and that's what we always think about here as we do the news, are the folks at home. Did it put anyone at peace about the future of our country in the immediate months and years to come and how we navigate our way out of this moment? We talked about President Trump. This was a unique opportunity for him to come in and say, here's what I will do over my next 4 years. I'm not sure we heard a lot of that tonight. And Joe Biden had to come in and we said, no unforced errors. Don't get pulled into the personal attacks. I do think he was fairly steady in temperament and tone. But I do wonder if people will be frustrated at home, no matter how difficult it was on that stage and in those moments, that they didn't hear enough really from either about their specific plans of guiding this nation forward.
One thing that is getting a lot of notice, Lindsay Davis online, the president refused to condemn white supremacists.
Right, and he said he would. When he was asked, he said, sure, I will. And then he ended up essentially giving a call to action saying, stand back and stand by. That was something that really got my attention. And I can't say I was surprised, but it was really a moment that I think that people, especially in the black community.
Stratological says, to be honest, though, it wasn't a good look to revert to name calling by calling Trump a clown. It's just bad optics, and it only makes it harder for me as an undecided voter to choose between the guy who called on his white supremacist groups to stand by and the guy who didn't. I love that. I love undecided voter memes, dude. Like, undecided voter memes are my favorite. Like, I really don't know if I should, make sure that the guy who is responsible for 205,000 Americans dying to coronavirus, a number that he absolutely could have and should have prevented exclusively because he wanted to pump up the markets as best as he could. I wonder if I should vote for that guy or the other guy that called him a clown. Like, I wanted Joe Biden to literally go on that stage and be like, your mother should have aborted you, Jack. That's what I wanted Joe Biden to say, so that America would be better off without your guidance in the past 4 years. Like, that's what I wanted Joe Biden to do. And I think a lot of people wanted Joe Biden to at least push back a little bit, man. Come on, Jack. Orange Man bad? I mean, Orange Man's pretty fucking bad, dude. He's pretty bad. Look, I call it like I see it. Joe Biden, brain is doo-doo. Okay? Doo-doo brain. For sure. Did decently on the debate stage last night, though. Not bad. You know, not great, but doesn't matter. He didn't die. But goddamn, dude. Orange Man is kind of bad. What will it take for you to admit that Orange Man is kind of bad?
Heard loud and clear.
Got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Back now after this first presidential debate, I want to go to Republican strategist Sarah Fagan. You said that Joe Biden had a tougher job coming into the night. Is that the way you feel coming out of it?
Look, I think this was a total food fight. I don't think either of these candidates won. There were moments where the president was setting up the choice in this election, but they just devolved, and they devolved too quickly. And the challenge for the president, I agree with John Carl, that in a place where he doesn't command the stage in a presidential way, he's not getting ahead. He's down 7 points going into this debate. I think he's probably still down 7 points after it.
That
I think this debate was an unmitigated disaster. And I think Trump's performance has shown me exactly why our country is in the state that we're in right now. The fact that we've survived to this point with that kind of leadership, I think, is amazing. I think, you know, Joe Biden's challenge was, as my grandmother said, don't make sense out of foolishness, it'll make a fool out of you. I mean, it was so much foolishness. I don't think there was a way for him to really cut through and have the moments that I think he desired at the top. It was just completely out of control. And I think the people who lose are the American people who, you know, as David has said, are looking for hope, are looking for real direction, are looking for leadership. Joe Biden did the best he can. And frankly, out of the gate, he did a much better job. By the end, it was clear that even he was getting unsettled. And I think got a little too hot towards the end, too. I wish he had taken a deep breath. But he had a huge chance.
What? No, I disagree. I think Joe Biden did a lot better towards the end than he did in the beginning. He was getting fucking ripped apart in the beginning, and only because Donald Trump kicked it up a notch instead of dialing it back and letting Joe Biden fail a little bit on his own, that he came across as a bully and bad overall. But Joe Biden actually did perform a lot better towards the middle and even in the end, where he had good moments, especially coronavirus, like the way he talked about Donald Trump's failures during coronavirus. That was probably one of the best, most coherent moments that he had. It was probably a practice speech, but he did a really fucking good job with that stuff. And that was towards the middle. The court packing stuff that he couldn't even fucking deflect away from, that was horrible if you ask me. And the only way that, the Proud Boys was really good. There was like a lot of lines in there that Joe Biden did well, but that was definitely towards the end and in the middle and not in the beginning whatsoever. The beginning was terrible.
Challenge, because Donald Trump really, really was a disaster, and I'm really, really afraid for our country, unfortunately, if he wins another term. Based on that performance.
Thank you, Yvette. Matthew Dowd, you've worked for both Democrats and Republicans. Of course, you worked for President George W. Bush. Your thoughts? For
everyone who thinks Biden couldn't formulate a good argument or policy, have no clue how stressful it is for someone to overcome hecklers while trying to speak. You know it so well by your own debates, correct? Yes, but I do the Donald Trump style. I roll over my debate opponents usually by yelling at them. So I debate like Donald Trump. I think that there's a delicate balance there, and Donald Trump failed. I usually will allow my opponent to at least express their ideas before I fucking start barking over them. But barking after a certain while is not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. It's just that Donald Trump, he did it from the gates, and he did that from the jump, and then didn't scale it back at all. There were literally moments where Donald Trump saved Joe Biden by talking over him instead of allowing Joe Biden to fuck up by not remembering a certain thing that he was going to say. Because like Joe Biden always dies down towards his like long, strung on sentences. And like, those are the moments where he says, you know the thing, Jack, or I shouldn't have spoken that much. Like, he never let that happen because he was constantly ready to fucking jump on it and constantly ready to fucking attack him. And he got overzealous. If he had actually scaled it back a little bit, he, one, wouldn't look like such a bully, and two, would have probably made probably made Joe Biden look really bad. Have those actual moments. He was literally, he fucked his own game up.
Well, I think this was an embarrassment. If you were in a foreign country, you look at our United States right now, if you watch that and think this was an embarrassment, and if you're sitting in our country, it's embarrassing, and that embarrassment falls directly at the feet of Donald Trump. I actually think there was a winner tonight, and that winner was Joe Biden, because if you're president of the United States and you're the incumbent, you have to convince people that everything's good in America and put me through another 4 years of this. And if you watch that debate, as a citizen of the United States, you're not thinking everything's great in America right now. So Joe Biden, yeah, he had good moments. He had some moments where he had a hard time dealing with this. And as I said going into the debate, that Donald Trump's a bull in a china shop. Well, the bull was let loose in the china shop. The moderator tried as best they could to control it. Joe Biden tried to fend it off. But when you look at the end of this, Donald Trump had to convince the American public that 4 more years of this is a good thing. The exact opposite conclusion, I think, they're going to come to after watching that debate.
Martha Raddatz, I don't envy anybody the job Chris Wallace had tonight.
Oh, okay, this is boring. I'm skipping. Chris Wallace.